Welcome into another episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. We're going to be talking OTAs, who's in the best shape of their lives, what to expect in the season, and also Steph's story about being the most famous podcaster in the world. Stick around. Woo! A snazzy intro. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez or Steph Bosa, however you wanna do it. This is the Bully Ball Podcast. Steph, I'm just gonna start. I mean, I usually ask how you are, right? I
Yeah.
hope vibes are high. I mean, you look like you're about to, head on a yacht, so vibes are up, right? But you've got to tell us this story about how this all came to fruition with you being in the schedule release and why you didn't tell your good friend about it. Like that's the part that really gets to me a little bit.
Well, one, the shirt, I do kind of look like I might hop on a yacht. That would be the Nick Bosa thing to do
Mhm.
right now when it's sunny. But no, I mean, look, it was top secret, man. And definitely it was hard to not tell anyone, especially you and Rob, because like I see you guys so many times once a week doing this show. I feel like you guys would keep it under wraps. I could trust you with that, but I was like, I think it would be way better if they were just as surprised as everyone else. So I decided not to tell you guys. I only told my family, my fiance, and yeah, everyone was surprised. So basically, they hit me up like almost a month before the release of the schedule, and they just asked me if I'd be available to come out there and shoot it. It was a really quick thing. I was in the Bay for like 24 hours in and out. It was the weekend of the draft, but we filmed on the Sunday. So no one was there. It was pretty like dead. And yeah, we shot it. You see I'm in the locker room. You see I'm in the 49ers gym, where Bosa does his quad workouts and whatnot, and he whispers to himself Bosa. But yeah, no, it was an awesome experience, and I don't think I could top that ever. I feel like the George Costanza, well, that's it for me. Like, just end on a high note. But yeah, no, it was awesome.
Steph, I again, like, and I mean this, I'm so happy for you. You deserve it all. And it's just the power of social media, right? Like we talk about
Yeah.
how much, hey, people are just doing things for this and that. This is the perfect example of how social media can be used for something that's so gainful and so cool, like honestly. And I'm not making this about me. I'm just saying that it starts with us running into John Lynch at the combine and
Yeah.
him recognizing you off the rip, and then him at the winter meetings, I believe, or it was during the Super Bowl, him bringing up your
Yeah.
name, Nick Bosa being asked about it. It's just to see all of this play out and then have it play out this way. And also, by the way, you did the right thing by not telling me because I would have just been sending out like eye emoji tweets and stuff like that. Like, for sure. You made the right decision. Just remember that. Hey, you're the smarter of the two of us on this podcast, and you continue to show that. But it's just so cool to see the events and see how it played out and see how it just ends with this. And just it's incredible because it seemed like John Lynch got a kick out of it. Same thing with Nick Bosa. For as much as everyone says, well, the 49ers don't care about like the community, like and what we do and stuff like that, they absolutely do. And they absolutely are aware of who's out here moving and shaking. And nobody's moving and shaking like you at this point.
Hey, shout out John Lynch. The underrated part of this video too was him remaking the GIF of him just smiling, like,
So good.
arms
So good.
crossed. Classic, a classic.
So good. And again, that's how you know they know social media because whenever there's a player, right? When there's a player that is like available, we all just put the job. It doesn't matter what, like the 49ers could have 35 wide receivers and a wide receiver will go up and we'll just put the John Lynch quote tweet over it. Like, and it's so funny that he's aware of
So
that. So
funny.
they absolutely are aware. One more question about it. The dialogue. Did you write that?
So they had a general like script of what they wanted me to say, but they did encourage me to like add in a few things. So like the line about, when I don't feel like myself, like when I accidentally eat a
Eat a
carb or
carb.
skip a leg day, like that was me. I added that in. And then obviously when I'm doing the weights and saying like Bosa, but like that was
That
that
was
was
so
on
good.
me. Like, yeah,
That's so
so
good.
they had the framework, but I did throw in some razzle dazzle Bosa lines in there.
Ah, excellent. See, that's the little stuff. And for anybody who wants to see some of the behind the scenes stuff, Steph did put out a video on her Instagram
Yeah.
and I believe on her YouTube. She got to run onto the stadium. They put her name up in the rafters, or I mean on the scoreboard like that. It's so cool, and honestly, I'm so happy for you. Honestly, the more you grow, the more it makes this community better. And again, it's just so cool to see it all play out the way that it did. A lot of people wanted some sort of cool schedule release. I think this is the best one they've ever done, honestly, and that's just my humble opinion.
I mean, I agree too. Not like we're biased or anything.
No, not like I'm completely not biased. But hey, again, congratulations, Steph. I mean, it was a great thrill. Literally, I was going on live, ready to react and to the schedule, and then boom, this thing comes out, and I just couldn't even focus. Like when we were doing our live, like I didn't even want to talk about the schedule anymore. I was like, who cares, man? Like we need to talk about this. But again, you did the right thing by not telling me, man. I really, really think that you're again very smart for that. So, all right. There is OTA, and it's weird because I want to ask you OTAs, right? So OTA stands for organized team activities.
Hmm.
So what's the extra S for? OTAs, this is
It's
like, isn't it just
it's the S from activities.
but doesn't it seem like it's a little bit more? Shouldn't it just be
Yeah, but
OTA?
you can't say like they're starting OTA. Like, does
Yeah,
that
they
make
can.
sense? Like,
49ers OTA began yesterday.
but there's
49er
several
OTA.
days. There's several
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I think Rob is in here getting ATM machine. Right. ATM machine. Why do you say ATM machine? It's ATM, right? Like the M is already
That's true.
machine. See, like this is
Yeah.
the part. All right, fine. Never mind never mind the grammar and stuff like that. But I want to say this. This is the time of the year that I find the most fascinating because there's always someone who is in the best shape of their career, the best shape of their life,
You
going
know
into
it's coming.
OTAs. And oh baby, this player season loading, this player loading season 3, right? Like I can see it now, right? Like we're gonna have one catch against Air, and they're gonna be like Chris Conley season loading, right? Like so to start this off before we get
Not
into
Chris
the
Conley,
actual,
man.
yeah, before yeah, right, Ronnie Bell
Of
season
all
loading.
players.
No, and no. But who is the player that you're betting is going to be the one who is in the best shape of their life, is going into their career season loading?
So there's two parts to this, right? I think there's one where the player comes in and he's in the quote unquote best shape of his life, and they get somewhat overhyped because of that. And that creates this thought of, oh, he's going to have a fantastic season. He's in the best shape of his life. That's certainly going to translate onto the field. And then it doesn't, right? Like, so that's one part of this. And then the second part, I think it are players who, maybe they're not necessarily in the best shape of their life, but you hear, media hyping them up throughout OTAs, and sometimes it goes into training camp as well. And sometimes it will translate into the season, right? So for me, the player that I think will get overhyped and maybe in the best shape of his life, or he looks great, but it may not translate, is Cameron Latu. Because I got to see something. I just got to see something before I can definitively say that it's going to translate on the field. Like, what am I basing it off of right now? I got nothing to base it off of right now.
Vibes.
There are no vibes, Jay. Like he had,
but you gotta manifest the vibes though. You can't just look. You're gonna sit here and wait for actual physical evidence that Cam Ladu's good, as opposed to just throwing the vibes out there and just saying season 2 loading season Cameron
we're
Latu
definitely gonna get those. That's a whole nother part, and that's the content aggregator part of it all.
Right. SZN season loading. And he's gonna catch one pass against Air. Cam Latu revenge tour. Trent Taylor redemption arc.
I can't.
Oh my god. So I see a bunch of names in here. And obviously we're having some fun with this because we're rounding into physical shape too as well. Like, getting ready for the season. We're still not there yet. I wouldn't say I'm in the best shape of my life at all. Deebo Samuel is one, right? This feels like somewhat of a contract year because it does feel like the 49ers are headed towards a divorce for him, and any team that he goes to is probably going to ask for more money. I think Debo is a prime candidate for that. But Debo Samuel's actually good at football, so I'm not really too
Exactly.
worried about it. Right?
That's
You
the
know
other
that
part.
that
Yeah.
right. Like he's
That would
actually really
translate onto the
right.
field.
He's actually really good at football, but he definitely could be right. Cam Latu's a good one. I can't wait for D Winter's season. Here it comes, like
I
or
can see that
something.
one too. I could definitely
No,
see that one.
the one that is absolutely going to happen is Drake Jackson. No questions asked. It's absolutely going to be Drake Jackson. Hands down, is going to be the person that is in the best shape of his life, has been working tirelessly. That one we need to see translate. And I think, honestly, it's come to a point that where he was drafted, it does feel like a disappointment so far with what you've gotten from Drake Jackson. But any sort of leap from Drake Jackson is absolutely a feather in your cap as a 49er, fan, because now you have Leonard Floyd. Now you have Gross Matos, and you can add him in there. I think the 49ers are kind of just sitting there hoping for something. And if they do get something, it's a huge plus. So Drake Jackson's my guy.
And Drake Jackson's interesting one because he kind of had some of that treatment last off season. You remember his rookie season; he was very slim. His time on the field kind of died down a bit towards the end. They said it was conditioning, all that stuff. Hit the rookie wall,
Hit the
and then he
rookie
goes.
wall.
Yeah, apparently this is a thing that happens. And then in the second year off season, you hear he's bulked up, right? All these good things about like his physical appearance. I think maybe we heard some things about him, doing well in OTAs and things like that, but that was one that didn't translate like in the regular season. And of course, he did suffer an injury, which derailed the season. But even when he was healthy and he was there, aside from the 3-sack performance, which one can argue was a cleanup sack performance, outside of that, it left a lot to be desired. So this year we're really looking, like you said, for him to make that leap. It's no longer that second year leap. We're not really looking forward to that. Like that did not happen. So now it's just like anything, please.
Anything.
Anything you can
Yeah.
get anything. So we'll see what they have to say. But I know like much of the offseason he was rehabbing. I don't know if he's like 100% yet. I mean, I don't know. We just haven't had an update on him regarding that. So hopefully he is full go, and hopefully he is ready to turn a corner.
Yeah, Drake Jackson feels like a guy that if you get anything, it feels like a win. And it almost feels like the way that we kind of started evaluating Javon Kinlaw after a while. Hey, look, high pick, we
Yeah.
get it, but now we just need you to just be on the field and be productive, right? 3 sacks in the first game against Pittsburgh, but anybody who watched the game saw that he kind of ran into those sacks. Eric Armstead's pushing him right into Drake Jackson, right? But sacks are sacks, and you need the production. But yeah, obviously Drake Jackson would be somebody. But I'm here for Braden Willis breakout season, year
Let's
2
go.
loading. And we're just at this point right now in the offseason where we're just waiting for things to come out. And today is the first day at OTA that the media will actually be there. So we are going to get some updates. Yesterday, no media allowed. I believe today's session is the only session that media will be in there. So can't wait for conflicting reports. Can't wait for who's looking good, who's not. Because, boy, the 49ers, everything that they do as far as content is entertaining, no matter what, right? Even something as simple as attending an OTA session will literally turn into a back and forth about what people see and what people have seen, right? And then all hell breaks loose. And I love it. I love it. I live for this type of stuff.
Jay,
right?
how do you? So I spoke about that on my podcast, and I kind of have a way of dealing with that as a fan, as a consumer of that content. Like, how do I
Right.
kind of parse between what's real and what's not, and what's kind of the truth in between? How do you, as a fan and consumer of that content, like take in that conflicting reports? Like, how do you kind of go about it?
All right. So I think the best way, and this is the way that I'm going to say it now that I've built relationships with a lot of the beat writers, right? Like I'm first name basis, very cool with them. We speak all the time. They always have nice things to say. So
Flex.
you got the same thing. What do you mean? You're the one who's hanging out with the 49ers, right? Like I haven't done that. Like
I get
what
no
the hell?
intel.
Yeah, I don't get intel either or whatever, right? Like, but I think I know where people stand like at times when they say things, right? I think, yeah, 100%. I am friends with all the beat writers. What the hell? Like they're nice. They're all nice to me and everything. But I understand where all opinions are coming from, right? I understand where I'm getting them from, and genuinely not what's the angle, but just kind of like objectivity, a little bit of this or that. It
Yeah,
depends,
you know
right?
where they lean
Right,
already.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. So for me, the thing is, you have to take in all of the information from everybody,
exactly.
and then once you parse through it all, you get to your spot. And again, think about this: we're going off of what they're seeing. That's why I don't have strong opinions about what's happening at these OTAs, mini camps, things like that, right? The only time I have a strong opinion is if I'm at training camp and I'm watching, because then I see everything myself. Now, again, you could take
Mhm.
what I'm saying with a grain of salt as well too, but I don't have strong opinions. That's why, like, when I see people like at times talking about like, well, he's killing it again. How do you know? How do you know? I mean, you're hearing that from one, two,
Right.
three people, right? But how do you know? He killed it all camp. Did he? Were you there? It's hard to sit there and say anything strong and definitive without
Right.
having my two eyes on it. And the other thing is, if you're not fortunate enough to make it to training camp, you're just going with what the beat reporters are saying, and the 49ers don't let you record anything. Like, not a thing. Like, all these training camp videos are coming through them, but if you look
Yeah.
around the league, everyone else has all these other videos from their phone on the ground, right? Like that's the one thing that's hard about this, is just you can't get a definitive look at something unless you're just willing to believe this person over this person or completely dismiss other people's opinions.
Which I think over time, like you could kind of, parse who you trust as well. A larger sample size of who has like, more reputable, I guess, reporting. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's definitely an important topic because as we head towards this chunk of the off season, OTAs, and then even going into training camp, and even me and you, Jay, like we see it firsthand in training camp how like we can see one thing and literally the person standing next to us will tweet something else.
Yep.
And like so it happens even to the content creators.
Yep.
So yeah, this is something that's real, and so just want to prepare fans for that, and just want them to know the best course of action to handle that.
Yeah, just trust who you trust. That's fine. But I
Yeah,
think it's important to get all the information from everybody, and then you'll be able to make a determination as to what happened.
speaking of,
Matt Barrows has tweeted, hearing that Nick Bosa is also on hand for 49ers OTA. I don't know what that extra S is for, man. It's fine. Which makes sense because his South Florida workout buddy Joey Bosa is at Chargers OTA. Cool. So Nick Bosa's there. Now, you know who's not going to be there, Steph Sanchez?
I
Brandon
can
Ayuk.
guess.
Brandon
Yeah,
Ayuk.
yeah.
Okay. So over the weekend, Jeremy Fowler goes on Sports Center and gives an update. And I wanna make sure that we understand that Jeremy Fowler has somewhat become a little bit of a 49ers insider. Let me explain. During Debo's contract time, he was the one who breaks the story
Yeah.
about him with the trade and his demands and everything. It was Jeremy Fowler. Right? So Jeremy Fowler goes on Sports Center, and this weekend it says the 49ers are far apart. And here we go. I'll just read it. I'm told the 49ers are certainly open to doing a deal, but talks have not progressed enough where things are close. And so, is he going to show up for the workouts? Hard to tell right now. The market is pretty set for him. Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit did that deal recently, about $28 million a year. So that's something for Ayuk and the 49ers to work off of, but I'm told they're not quite there yet. Steph, we have the most boring take when it comes to this. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. I'm not worried. It's going to get done. What a lot of people are forgetting too is June 2nd, the 49ers get $18 extra million because of
Hmm.
Eric Armstead's post June 1 release. And following the course of past extensions, it's either happened right before camp, during camp, after camp, in Nick Bosa's case. I know they're far apart right now because that extra money's not there yet. But what's important, I think, in that quote is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Smith, what they're getting. And we've been on board saying That's going to be the floor. That's literally what
Yeah.
Ayuk is going to be looking for. That's not something that he sees Amon-Ra St. Brown get that money and say, damn, maybe I can get 30. They were already thinking that. So those don't really change the situation. But for me, this just feels like a big nothing burger as well. Again, this is just it's a boring take from me. I know that. I know that for a fact.
And it's just that part of the off season where, even they have to find some things to talk about. So, Brandon Ayuk's negotiation, that extension hasn't happened yet. Oh, what's the update we have? Oh, the update is there's not really an update, so there's going to be maybe plenty more of those between now and the time that that deal gets done. And already we've seen a few of them that haven't really moved the needle for us as far as our take on it. And you said it, like it's boring. We're a broken record. We're not worried about it in May, in March. We've been literally saying this since March that we're not worried about it, and there's still month to month before we'd even get to that point where it's like maybe, but like we're not there. So
Right.
I think I'm confident that something will get done, and these reports don't really change that.
I'll ask you this, and this is something that I think is kind of interesting because 49er fans seem to have this sentiment about this lingering through training camp because of what happened last season with Nick Bosa, right?
Mhm.
Nick Bosa doesn't come to training camp. He shows up week 1. Nick Bosa was fine last year. I think he looked a lot like the player, but I don't think he was the player like from the year before, right? And I think a lot of
Yeah.
fans are worried about missing camp and then having a little bit of a lackadaisical start or a sluggish start. Do you worry about that at all, Steph, with Brandon Ayuk?
I think it's a fair concern for any player because we've now had two 49er players kind of echo that same sentiment, Debo and Bosa, about that, following season after their negotiations and that kind of distracting them a little bit. And also them, of course, missing some part of the offseason with the rest of the team. So, yeah, I think it's fair to have that concern. And that's a part of the 49ers, like while we know what the process is and we know that, it's around training camp that they always do this, that is the part that I kind of hate because it does take away a little bit of that player having the opportunity to be in the building, work with Brock Purdy, for example, and we already know that those guys have a great rapport already, but there's going to be some new guys in the building. So how are those guys, along with Brandon Ayuk in the mix, once he's there, once he gets his extension, how is all that going to fit, right? It's going to be maybe a different dynamic. So that's something they're going to have to figure out once he gets in the building. But yeah, I mean, I think more so from the player standpoint, it's concerning because they themselves say that they kind of experience that.
Yeah, and again, there's no tangible way to talk about, hey, he missed some time and this is what's going on, right? Like I think it's just something that is a bit of an assumption based on the fact that Nick Bosa missed out, on training camp and he didn't have 300 sacks right over the season. So I just think it's an interesting conversation, but there's no way to know for a fact what's going to happen, right? Like some guys don't need any training camp; they just show up and boom, they can go. Some guys may need it, and that's the thing. And I think this is a perfect segue into the schedule and everything. Is I think the 49ers have to kind of hit the ground running early on while this schedule is very soft, right? And I think according to ESPN, they have the 23rd toughest schedule, which is pretty crazy when you think about it for a team that was just in the Super Bowl. But you look at these first few games, Jets, Vikings, Rams are a playoff team, right? Patriots, Cardinals, right? So those first 5 games, while the Jets could be better, and I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that if Aaron Rodgers is even somewhat available, they're going to be better, right? I don't know how much by week 1 it'll be, but the Vikings weren't good. I mean, it could be Sam Darnold that's starting. The Rams are a very good team. They made the playoffs. The Patriots don't know who they're starting. Could be Jacoby Brissett. The Cardinals are a team that always give the 49ers problems, but they should win. In those first 5 weeks, the 49ers have got to reel off some wins there because after that, they pretty much do very well against Seattle, but then the Chiefs, the Cowboys, right? Your bye week, then the Bucks. That's three straight playoff teams. Then you get the Packers, the Bills, 2 more playoff teams on the
Yeah.
road, by the way. Then the Rams again, and then 2 more playoff teams at the end, the Dolphins and the Lions. You've got to like hit the ground running here. You've got to reel off some wins here early on before this schedule gets a little bit tougher.
Yeah, their schedule after the bye week is insane, and I definitely don't envy them. I mean, a lot has been said about the 49ers schedule since it came out, just because it is maybe one of the worst in terms of disadvantages that the 49ers have. Third worst rest differential. They're going to face four teams coming off a bye week. And, you mentioned it, like, yeah, the Vikings, that week 2 game. You look at the first 5 games, and yeah, like, it's not crazy to just look at those teams and think, okay, the 49ers could be 5-0. But if it's much more than just who they're playing against. You have to, like, now that we have the schedule, we can look at the context of everything else. So week 1, Monday Night Football game. Week 2, early body clock game. Oh, and also it's going to be in Minnesota, right? So that right there is a disadvantage to the 49ers, and they should still be able to beat the Vikings, right? But those are just all the little things in their schedule that, could play a role. I'm not saying it'll definitely play a role, but it could. And so that's what could put the 49ers at a disadvantage in some of these games. But when you look at the second half of their schedule and how brutal that is, just based on the opponents alone, not even looking at the context of everything else. Yeah, I mean, that first half of the season, they do need to, maximize their opportunities and get ahead of the division any way they can, right? Because it is going to be tough. And yeah, even week 6 through 8 is a bit of a tough stretch as well. If we're just talking opponents. So it's gonna be tough, a tough battle to climb the mountain again. But this is how it goes if you trying to get to the Super Bowl.
I'm less concerned about the rest differential thing than everybody else. This seems like this has people in a chokehold right now. And I understand, right? When you go through the numbers and you look and you're like, man, again, back to back year with the 49ers, man, the rest differential, that's not really conducive to 49ers still won 13 games. Um,
That
I'm
doesn't
not
mean it
worried.
didn't impact them though.
No, no, no. In certain games, right? Because there was this time where Kyle Shanahan said the defense was slow, right? And they feel
Yeah,
I think if there's any team that is equipped to deal with this, give me the 49ers.
and
And
that's fair.
again, like there's nothing you can do about the schedule. It is what it is. But you have to believe that when the 49ers go out there and they are favored in every single game, that
Yeah,
when they're the better team on the field, they're going to take care of business regardless of rest, right? I think injuries is probably more threatening than this rest differential thing. Obviously, right? Like I think that's obvious to say, right? But injuries are more threatening to the 49ers season than this rest differential thing. But
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'm Captain Obvious over here. But I'm not as concerned with this. I really just I'm not, man. I think again, the 49ers have found a way to go to the East Coast, win these games, right? Like they've got a good system. I'm not worried about it, man. I think if we start to see the ill effects, it's like last season when they said, "Hey, the teams are the defense is a little slow." They feel like that. That's cool, you know what I mean? But again, we can point to other things in those games, like that Cincinnati game
Yeah,
where you have turnovers, right? Like the Minnesota game, turnovers on the other side of the field. So again, if the 49ers play their best game, I don't think anybody can beat them at any point during the season. Like it doesn't really necessarily bother me as much.
I think having the bye week at week 9 again is great for the 49ers too, because that's close to the midpoint of the season. So that's a pretty ideal spot for them to have that. Gammon Brown, shout out Gammon Brown for the donation. He said Cowboys equals Drake of NFL. Jay, does that mean the 49ers are the Kendrick, the boogeyman?
Man, I don't know, man.
Or the
Don't
Cowboys?
but honestly, I'm not a Drake fan, but that's
You're not like us.
disrespectful. That's disrespectful to Drake, honestly. Saying that he's the Cowboys, my God. Drake Drake was number one for a long
You're
time.
not like us.
Drake was number one for a long time. I don't know when the Cowboys have ever been number one. Jeez. Man. No, but it is a good point about where the bye week is, right? And I think another thing's important. They have a bit of a mini bye, right? Like off of a
Yeah.
Thursday night game going into the Chiefs game, right? Like so there's ways to look at this. And again, opponents aside, uh, the NFL schedule is always going to be grueling. They don't have many games like, they're not going to London or anything like that. So that's another good thing. Not playing on Christmas, thank God. Not playing on Thanksgiving, thank God. Those games, like, while it's cool because everybody's gonna be watching and it's a holiday game, it's too stressful, man. Like, I just want to have some rice and beans on Thanksgiving and penne and just enjoy the other teams losing and stuff. I don't have to sit there and sweat through a game or something like that. Or like on Christmas, I just want to see my daughter open up some presents. I don't want to have to worry about the Baltimore Ravens walking into the stadium. Like, give us a break too. Why is nobody thinking? Everybody's talking about rest differential for the 49ers. Can we get some rest as parents and 49ers fans as well too? Why does nobody ever care about that? Like, but again, the schedule is what it is. So I guess we should do what everybody else is doing, and just make the prediction of 20-0 going forward in this, no losses, never lost, undefeated.
Like, where that?
Yeah, 20-0. Oh no, wait, make it 21-0 because they're gonna win the bye week too.
Fuck it, win the bye week.
Win the bye week. I mean, the bye week stands no shot. I mean, at this point, the bye week, some would say the bye week's undefeated. I think this is the year that the 49ers take the bye week down finally. But no, seriously, maybe we should get into, some actual predictions. So I do have the 49ers beating the Jets on Monday Night Football to open the season. Aaron Rodgers does look good. Again, OTA pictures and videos are coming out. I think he looks great. He's throwing the football to Garrett Wilson. Best shape of his life, I heard. For Aaron Rodgers, even still, I think the 49ers win their first 5, at least, right? The Rams game is going to be very tough. The Rams, again, if Matthew Stafford's there and with the additions they made in the draft and everything, they're always going to be a thorn in the 49ers side. So I still have the 49ers, though, winning the first 5. What do you think?
First 5, and I do have them winning into week 6 as well. The first loss I have them taking would be
Chiefs.
Against the Chiefs. I need to see them do it before I can ever.
I agree.
Again, I can't go off the vibes on that one, Jay. See, that's one where I got to actually see.
No.
They got to show me something. But yeah, 2 divisional games in those first few weeks. Rams, I think, it's going to be at SoFi, so it's going to feel like a home game. And I think there's still going to be some kinks, to figure out for the Rams. They're going to give them a good, I think competition in that one. But ultimately, I think it's more likely that week 15, maybe the 49ers lose that one. It's a Thursday night football game against the Rams. And that one would be at home. So that would suck if they did lose that one. But I think they split in this season between the Rams. Then, that week 6 game, the Thursday night football game against the Seahawks, that will be in Seattle. I have the 49ers winning that one just because, Mike McDonald, I do respect him as a defensive coordinator. Not sure. I'm sure he'll be a good head coach too. And I just think it's going to take him a little time to acclimate his players and vice versa in his system. Sometimes that adjustment period could be quite a bit. So week 6, I think the 49ers take that one. Week 11 will be a little more interesting. And so that one to me could be a bit of a toss-up because I believe the Seahawks would be coming off a bye week going into that game as well. So for me, they might have figured some things out, some little tweaks, worked out the kinks. So that one could be a toss-up. But yeah, I think going into the bye week, the only loss I see for the 49ers, like definitively, is against the Chiefs. Is that kind of where you're at too?
100%. And I don't want anybody to be upset because, all right.
We can't even be upset about that anymore. It's just,
right. Like, how can...
It's realistic.
Right. As staunch 49ers supporters, the Kansas City Chiefs are Michael Myers at the end of the movie. Or Jason Voorhees at the end of the movie.
They freaking own us.
Right? Like, there's 10 minutes left in the movie, and, hey, things are going okay. And you're just waiting. You're just waiting for them to hop out of the closet or burst through the door again, even though, you saw Michael Myers laying on the dirt, a few minutes ago. And then you look back and he's gone. And you turn around, he's right behind you. Like, I don't know how anybody could walk into this game and say, yeah, you know what? I know for a fact the 49ers are going to get this one done. Whew. The 49ers against the Chiefs is like, it's like an NBA shooter, right? You just need to see one basket go through first before you can start. Like, if Steph's missing, but then he gets a layup or he gets a free throw and he sees the ball go, oh, yeah, here comes the confidence back. The 49ers got to see one of these balls go through the hoop one time, man. Like, and then we can start talking about taking them down in February, whenever that is. So, yeah.
Jay, king of analogies. Those
I'm
were
with you.
perfect. Those were
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm with you though. Like I don't see how, and the 49ers are favored in that game.
It's
Um,
crazy.
that's crazy to me. So it's not like we're saying it's this impossible task, but it is hard to just stand on business and say, yeah, the 49ers are going to take down the Chiefs. They haven't done it in the Patrick Mahomes era. The last time the 49ers beat the Chiefs, Alex Smith was the quarterback. And you think about all the times that the 49ers have played them, right? Jimmy Garoppolo's ACL game, obviously the Super Bowl, obviously the game this past year, or was it the year before, in Levi's, and then obviously the Super Bowl again. They just haven't been able to get the ball to go through the hoop. And I think once they see a W on the screen and they finally finish it, the little bit of the psychology of it goes out the window and the 49ers can feel better about it. But I can't predict the 49er win over the Chiefs right now. I just don't see how anybody can.
Well, the second half of the season, what are you kind of thinking for the 49ers, seeing as how many tough matchups they have?
Yeah, that Packers and Bills back to back,
That's tough.
that's brutal,
That's tough.
man. I mean, look, the 49ers can absolutely beat both of those teams. The 49ers are absolutely better than
Mhm.
both those teams. But the Packers seem to be one of those teams that are closing the gap, right? They're closing the gap. Again, it's not a rivalry until you win one. So the Packers got to win one, right? Like first. But we can all agree that if everything goes the way that you think, right? Jordan Love takes a jump. The Packers added some things in the draft. They start to continue to creep up. That game becomes even harder to win in Green Bay. But the 49ers
Yeah.
are well equipped to go do that because they've gone in there and they knocked the doors down in Lambeau, right? Like this isn't back in the day when Brett Favre was the quarterback and you just went in there and you didn't win games, right? Like right now, the 49ers and everybody else can go into Lambeau and win those games, right? It's not impossible. But if the Packers grow, it becomes a lot harder, right? And then the Bills, obviously, in Buffalo again, and then on back-to-back weeks, that's your first stretch of like, that's when you'll really know what this football team is. Look, beating the hell out of the Cowboys, that isn't going to change the way I feel about the 49ers. I just know that's just like at this point, just how things go. Like we know,
Yeah.
right? They can't beat us. We always whip them. They're walking through that door with just about the same exact team. Not worried about them. Beating the Cowboys doesn't really tell me anything. But going into Green Bay, going into Buffalo, winning those games, that's what we're going to learn a lot of what this team is made of and how they're going to go this season.
And the Bills will be coming off of bye week for that game as well. So again, like and that's why we're saying yes, the 49ers are better than most teams in the NFL, but it's not always that simple when it comes to these predictions because there's so much more context. We're talking about the 49ers having to go on the road to Lambeau and then to Buffalo. It could be cold by that point. That's like the Packers game would be end of November, Bills game, probably that first week of December. So it could be chilly. Those are all factors that play a role. Bills coming off a bye week as well. And then not just that, I mean, even week 14 is interesting. Right now in May, it isn't. But by week 14, we don't know what's going to happen. If Caleb Williams has a good season, I mean, that's plenty of time for the Bears to kind of figure their stuff out and for Caleb Williams to get comfortable in the NFL, right? If that's the sort of
Mm-hmm.
season that he's having. So even week 14, which right now in May, like I said, feels like it could be a little bit of a break in that gauntlet, it might not be by the
Right.
time that week 14 comes around. So, yeah, I mean, that one could be crazy, but that one's going to be at home at least for the 49ers. And then I already talked about like this week 15 game against the Rams. They'll be at home. Short week, Thursday night football. If the Rams split with the 49ers, that's the game I could see the 49ers maybe dropping just because, again, of the context of this entire gauntlet. Like you're going up against so many good teams week in and week out. That's tough to like sustain the same level of play through like hard fought games like that. So that's why I think like if they're gonna drop one, it might be that one. All right. Where are you with that though? Like, do you think the Rams may split with the 49ers again, or do you kind of see the 49ers sweeping the division again?
They
Certainly could
could.
happen.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason they didn't last year is because they played Sam Darnold in the last game, and the 49ers are just allergic to tackling Carson Wentz. Like I get that, but I think they absolutely can. Real quick, let's just take this super chat. Daza0187, thank you for the donation. We need one of the linebackers to step up this year. Run D sucked last year, and we lost Armstead, Kinlaw, and Greenlaw. So run D could be even worse this year. I think a lot of that was just the inability to marry Steve Wilkes' defense to the wide nine and all that stuff. So I do think we're going to see a little bit of. I mean, it can't get any worse, I think, in terms of run D. That's something that, even though you're losing these players, I still think it's more about assignments, filling gaps. And I think the 49ers were a little bit disjointed and disconnected from that all season as they tried to fix, they tried to get through everything with Steve Wilkes as well, too. But good news is Sorensen's going to be on the field and not in the booth. So that problem is going to be solved. Absolutely, right? Because that's really what matters.
Hopefully. I mean, when Sorensen was asked about it, we got like the Vegas answer. It was just like, yeah, we've looked into it. So that was it. That doesn't inspire confidence, but I'm going to trust you, bro. For now, so with Sorensen, I'm going off the vibes because I haven't seen anything else to
Vibes are all we have right now. I mean, what else are we supposed to go off of, right? I mean, you got a first-time DC. That's all we have right now until we start to get actual film and things like that. Like, this is all we have. But kind of going back to what you were saying with this schedule, right? Like, the Rams are always going to be the team that can stand in the 49ers way, always, right? And that's just based on obviously the similarity with McVay and Shanahan and all those things, right? And it's just those games always feel like they could be up in the air, right? Even let's go back to last year. The first game in SoFi, that was a pretty close game for much of that game until the end, right? Like, and the 49ers ended up pulling away. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk gets hurt in that game. But they did lose Aaron Donald, right? But they do draft Braden Fisk, and it's weird to see that the Rams have kind of reloaded so quickly with first round picks and everything. It happened so fast, right? Remember, we were all making fun of them. Well, they don't have picks or anything like that. Well, look, here they are, like right here again, being annoying, right? They hit on Puka, they hit on, and then Kyron Williams turns into a dog. They even draft Blake Corum to be right behind him. The running game should just be as efficient. They for all intents and purposes upgraded their offensive line. Like, these are all things that are annoying about the Rams. But I will say this, if the NFL had their way, that Lions matchup would be for number 1 seed. That would be incredible. I think if the NFL had their way, if the scriptwriters want to go crazy, that's how you go crazy, is you make them play each other for the number 1 seed, and you hope that that's kind of where they're going.
I would like to see it. And yeah, when it comes to the Rams, like, I'm just like, I don't know how they do it, but I'm just annoyed by their existence.
Yeah. They're annoying, right? Exactly. Like, you're annoying, man. Like, all right, enough, man.
It's like the little brother vibes.
Just stop, man. Like, it's just, God. I don't want to play Madden with you again. Stop.
Leave the room and close the door on your way out, please.
You're too old to realize that I've unplugged the controller and you're not playing. Like, you get that you're not playing anymore. Damn it.
So that one will be interesting. That week 15 game. Important to note, the Rams are going to be coming off a game against the Bills the week before, so that could play a role. Again, Thursday night football game too. So week 16 at the Dolphins. We love this matchup. Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan. What are they going to cook up for their respective offenses? And the Dolphins will have played Houston the week before of this game. So that could be interesting too, before the 49ers are going to be traveling for that one. So that one to me is a win. And I'll tell you why. Because I think, like, Kyle Shanahan has a track record of sunning, his previous coaches and guys who have kind of learned under him. Mike McDaniel, no different. And so it could be one of those toss-up games, but just because I know how Kyle goes in those games and kind of has some little tricks up his sleeve for those, I think that I'm going to give the edge to Kyle.
Man, that game is going to be a December game in Miami. Ooh, that one's calling my name. That's the one. I've been to Levi's. That's cool. But a chance to go to Miami in December. Woo, man, I don't know if I can pass that one up. That's definitely a game I want to hit. Okay, look, before we close out, Mike Clay of ESPN, who does fantasy football, but he's somebody that I respect and not somebody who just crunches the numbers. He put out his season predictions and stat predictions. Now, we'll put him up on the screen. But what I want to point out that I think is really interesting is, first of all, he's got the 49ers winning more games than anybody in the league. And I believe it's around 13, like if I'm not mistaken, that he thinks that that's what's going to happen. But when you look at these predictions, 15 games only for Brock Purdy. And I don't think he means injury. I think he means the Niners wrap this thing up so early that Brock Purdy's going to get 2 weeks off. And I think when you see the other ones, Christian McCaffrey 14, that's accounting for an injury. And you see Brandon Ayuk with 15 games. That is across the board. Mike Clay thinks the 49ers are going to have this thing wrapped up with 2 games left to play, which wouldn't be the worst thing. But how much is too much rest, right?
That is, I think that's too much.
Right, especially if you have a bye week, right? Like, that's a lot. Like, they're not going to play for a month, and then just get back out there, guys. So I did find that part interesting. But I did want to point out something about Purdy's stats. In 15 games, he has Purdy with more attempts than he had from last year through 16 games. 476 to 444. But with more attempts, his passing yards will decrease and his touchdown passes will decrease. The math ain't mathing to me on that one, Steph. What do you think?
Look, I don't think it's crazy to think that the 49ers are going to want to air it out a little bit more than, last season. I think also with just the moves they've made, bringing in 2 wide receivers, that seems to support that, maybe they want to pass a little bit more. I don't think that Brock Purdy is going to replicate the stats of last season. That doesn't mean he's going to be a worse quarterback. I do think we could see a season where statistically he takes a step back, but as a quarterback, he's better. Yeah, we could definitely see that. And I think that's exactly. And I think that's what we see this season. So maybe that's what he's trying to convey here with these stats. I'm not crazy about 11 interceptions though. That's
I don't get that one either, because especially last season when Brock had 11, right? It's kind of funny, right? And let's take this. Daza, again, thank you for the donation. Injuries will be the main thing that would derail the season, particularly Trent and CMC, 100%. We were healthy mostly last season. The 49ers had insane injury luck until they didn't, which obviously had happened in the Super Bowl. But kind of back to this Purdy thing is, I think that is perfect because there is a way Purdy takes a leap, but his stats don't reflect that. And I think that's what we're all kind of looking for in this offseason, in which he doesn't have to work on an injury or anything like that. He can just go straight into building his rapport with the new guys and just the continuity of that. Real quick, I wanted to go through something that I thought was hilarious. So Christian McCaffrey is going to get 83 targets and 67 receptions. Last season, Christian McCaffrey had 83 targets and 67 receptions.
Someone forgot to update the
Mike Clay, are you just copy and pasting now, bud? Because it's like back to back, it's gonna be the same exact number. What's the formula here? How did you get to this one? And he's gonna do it in 14 games, right? Obviously he has Christian McCaffrey with 9 less carries and 200 less yards. But 14 touchdowns last season, 12 touchdowns. I just think that's really funny, honestly, that he just came up with 83 and 67. Where are you getting that one from? Now, to double down on that just a little bit, last season, Brandon Ayuk, 105 targets, 75 receptions. 75 receptions. Again, 1,068 yards. Last season, 1,342 yards. Mike Clay, are we just saying, hey, man, this is what they did last year. This is what we're going to do again. We're running it back with that. 75. He's going to have more targets, the same amount of catches, and less yards. I don't know what goes into this formula. I just think it's fascinating. What do you think?
It's almost like he just gave the extra 300 yards to Ricky Pearsall, just assuming that they would split those somehow. I mean, there's new guys in the mix. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to have a role. The question is, who is that going to take snaps from? Is it going to be Brandon Ayuk or will it be Deebo Samuel? I think we can assume Deebo Samuel misses at least one game, which,
I think that's what you see here as well, too.
14 exactly. Games, right? He's projected, which is that's spot on.
That's fair.
I think that's, definitely is fair. And so I think that's the guy who we'll see get less receiving yards, and then Ricky
Right.
Pearsall will pick up some of that. I don't know if I would love that big of a drop off. I guess not that big of a drop off for Brandon Ayuk, 300 yards, but like if he is just getting the bag, man, I
Involve him.
right, that
Like,
too. It's like, and I think that might, hopefully, that's part of what Ayuk is kind of like fighting for in all of these negotiations. I don't know how
mhm,
that works as far as including that in the contract, but
mhm,
I do hope he is featured more in this offense, and I do hope he gets more than 1,068 receiving yards. I hope
mhm.
he gets more than he had last year. You know,
Yeah. I'll tell you this. If Danny Gray has more catches than Jacob Cowing this season, I don't even think Danny Gray is going to make this roster anyway. But if Danny Gray has more catches than Jacob Cowing, I am not going to be a happy fan. I
that's
will not
actually
be a happy fan.
wild.
That is
That is
insane.
wild.
So 2 targets for Jacob Cowing, 2? Nah,
But
come on,
he
man.
catches them both.
For 19 yards. No, 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 no.
Not even down the
Absolutely not.
field, like just
Absolutely not.
what are
Absolutely
we
not.
doing here, man?
Danny Gray, you're count your days, pal. Count your days. You know, like I don't want to say it like to be mean, but you, Cam Ladu, Embry Thomas, you've all got to count your days going into camp. I don't see how this is something that, especially after these 2 additions with Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, I haven't seen Jacob Cowing take 1 snap yet in the NFL. Jacob Cowing is a better wide receiver than Danny Gray today, this moment, today, tomorrow, and every Sunday. I don't want to see Danny Gray on the field and not see Jacob Cowing on the field. I'm sorry.
I think that's the most likely scenario, honestly. Like, yeah, I think we 49er fans know that Danny Gray's days are numbered. As far as Cam Latu, I don't really, I'm not really sure, and I only say that because they didn't really bring anyone else aside from Eric Saubert, but
But they
we have yet to
tried.
see.
They
They
tried a bunch.
tried, but
They
they
tried a lot.
didn't.
I
So.
mean, they're kind of telling you what they feel about their tight end 2
Oh,
situation by trying to throw
absolutely.
that money at the guy from the Lions and this and that. Like they've been trying as hard as they can to get another tight end 2 in there, which kind of is telling you what they think about Cam Ladu.
Which is crazy though, because then after that, like they didn't pursue anyone else. Like Robert Tunyon was still available.
Right.
Who did he sign with? Did he sign with was it the Bills or
Minnesota.
I forget? Oh, Minnesota. Okay, so
Yeah.
he was there. George Kittle's friend, they could have brought him in. So I don't know. It's like it's interesting because on one hand they were trying to pursue Brock Wright. Would have been awesome if they were able to get that going. And then on the other hand, when that didn't work out, like we didn't see any movement on the tight end front. So
Yeah.
that's what OTAs and camp will be for, right? Let's see what these guys have.
You know what's hilarious too? Because I'm looking at last year's stats. It felt like Ty Davis Price wasn't even on this team last year at any moment. He has 6 carries for 21 yards. It feels like he's not been on the team for like 2 years. I don't even think I can remember what games he was actually getting carries in. Because it was 1 game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have just been one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I,
Speaking of, like
what?
the running back room after Christian McCaffrey, obviously, is interesting. I really want to see how that shakes out. We're sickos, man. We
Isaac.
want to know who the RB2 and 3 is going to be.
Nobody
Real sickos.
obsesses about backups like the 49er fans do, right? Backup quarterback, backup this guy, backup that guy. You got to have all good backups. It's crazy, but I do want to see Isaac Guerrero. I want to see him take a
Yeah.
much
Oh,
bigger
yeah.
role, man. Like a much bigger role. Like I don't know what's going to happen with Elijah Mitchell. Obviously, he's had his problems with durability and everything, but I would love to see Isaac Guerrero be a part of it right away. Like game plan him in right away. And you can do that because he's very good in pass pro. And I think he has that speed that I think they're kind of missing. Like Christian McCaffrey's fast. I think Isaac Guerrero's just got a different gear. They've been kind of missing it since Mostert left. So I want to see him involved a little bit more right away. You know, Elijah Mitchell's reliable. He's going to take what's there, but I want to see Isaac Guerrero like give a little bit more of a home run ability, which is something I think the 49ers have been missing since, Raheem went over to Miami.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, because like I feel like Kyle Shanahan loves these running backs when he pounds a table for them and drafts them as high as he does, and then when they get on the team, it's just like no, like you don't look as good as I thought you did, so I'm not
Right.
gonna use you. Like they don't
Right.
like they disappear. So
Right.
I hope that's not the case for Garendo, because I would really like to believe that he can take on that Raheem Mostert role that the 49ers had. And yeah, that's an element I think the 49ers do truly miss, in particular Kyle Shanahan.
I just want Isaac to break the whole drafting running back curse. Like I need
Yes.
him to I need him to break this up, right? The funny thing to say is draft a running back and then they end up on the Eagles. Like I don't want this to happen, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna have an entire offseason to get into all of that. But thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. Obviously, again, Steph, congrats on everything that's happened to you lately, especially with the video for the 49ers as well, too. That's so cool.
Thank you, man.
But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to wherever you get your audio podcast, to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, goldstandardniners.com as well. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. For Steph, for Jay, we're out here.
Peace.